Hi everybody, it's Kathy here from Kathy Loves Scrap, and today I'm bringing you a layout that I'm doing for a Mystical Scrapbooks on Facebook challenge. Each month they provide lots of challenges, and this month it's a colour challenge. This is the mood board that they've provided, and this is the double layout that I have created using those colours. I've also used Scrapbook Fantasies paper kit, Magical Memories, and I pulled this layout of a special moment for my daughter when we went to Parramatta Park a few years ago. And as we progress throughout this layout, I'll explain a little bit about these photos. So first of all, I'm using the photos as I said. We were at Parramatta Park and she went down to the lake, and all of the birds all of a sudden came from everywhere. The swans, the ducks, the sparrows, all of them. They just all came across, and everybody, as you can see in the background, the cars stopped to watch, and there's a little bridge down a little bit further, and people were lined up on the bridge watching how these birds all came across from everywhere to her. She's always been a bit of an animal whisperer. So I'm using these papers, and that wreath is going to be a feature. I really do love these products and the colours, and they tied beautifully for this colour board. I'm making a double, as I said, and this is going to be on both sides, and I'm using the golden colour towards the side with the fussy cut elements on both layouts. So it's a really nice combination, and as I said, I love working with this quality of paper, and it's Australian made. I'm using this steel blue, which is also part of the colour in the colour board, and that is going to become my frames for my layout. But as I said, this is the wreath that I love. It's gum leaves, and they are in a bowl type thing. Well, I think they look like gum leaves. I'm not sure if they really are. I think they're probably more like an ivy or something like that, a bracken. And they're in a wreath, and I'm going to cut out the wreath this time. I have used the wreath before. It is so delicate and beautiful that I just couldn't resist using it again. So I'm using my X-Acto craft knife to cut around the outside, and a trick I learned from watching a YouTube about getting your knife so sharp is to use your knife sharpener that you have for your kitchen knives, and that makes the blades super sharp so that they just slice through the paper really easily, and it's like butter, and then when you lift it off there's no catching or no gripping to the original cardstock. So what I'm doing for this one is I've gone all the way around, and I've cut out those empty spaces in between to give the light airy feel of the wreath, and you can see how that is. And it took a while, but it was worth it. I've prepared the double page by putting in the daisies and the gold, and now I'm going to put the layout together. So first of all, I'm going to slice that wreath in half, and I'm going to put half on the left hand side of the page and the other half on the right hand side, and that ties the two pages together. So you can see how that is going to blend nicely, and I'm just manipulating it around before I glue it down. I'm using tacky glue, and the reason I use tacky glue is because it takes a while for it to actually dry and set, and while you're working on your layout you're able to lift pieces without tearing. So it's a really good glue to manipulate, and it also holds lots of things like wood and metal and gems and glitter, everything. So it's one of the better glues I've found to use when I've been scrapbooking, and the best thing, it's acid free. So I've put down my layout here on the left hand side, and that's now pulled that page together. I'm just putting down that little bit there that's sticking up, which is a bit not very good, and you can see I've gone in and just made sure that that's now flat against the page. I'm going to put that to side for a moment and bring the other side across and adhere that part of the wreath in so that both pages now are ready to work with. I really love how this page is coming together, and the colours just blend beautifully. The glue, as I said, is really super easy to use, although sometimes it does thicken, and that's because of the temperature of the room. At the moment here in Australia it's cooling down, so sometimes it's a little bit tricky to work with, but that's okay. You just warm it up and it just flows again. There you go. So you can see that I've got that wreath in place. Now I have my double layout done, and I'm really sorry you can't see the double because I work in a very small space. So see my A3 pad, that's the space I work in. I create in that space. I don't have a lot of space. So what you see when I'm doing my videos is where I work. There is no more space. So I'm just pulling this together. My friend is amazed that I can work in such a tiny space, but I am so used to it that I just be able to manipulate around it. I'm moving the photos around because I want them to be balanced on the layout. I don't want the layout to be overcrowded. I don't want that wreath to be covered up too much. I just want it to be a feature. So I've manipulated the photos so that I'm happy with how they're fitting. And as you can see, I've lifted them up there. I'm going to start laying these out. I have done 2 of the photos like triptologies. I've cut them into 3s and then put them back together. So I like that effect on a photo. I think it's very visually pleasing, and it's something different on the layout. It makes the eye just catch and look at the photo, particularly when they are those far away photos and you're taking in the full scene. Look at that, all those bin chickens, they even made an appearance that day, or the ibises as you might know them. The bin chickens in Australia, they just are taking over, but in this day they just came down. You can see there's ducks and there's swans, and there was little sparrows, and there were a whole range of birds, and they just came across to her. She was just sitting there down by the edge of the lake, and it was like a Snow White moment. So that's why I've chosen these embellishments to go on here, because it was that magical forest moment. I do put the fox on it, but in the end I changed my mind and I don't actually use the fox. So I have this title that says Crazy Kind of Love, and I'm just covering it up with my paint that I use a lot of lately, and it's the distress paint called Weathered Wood, and I love it. It's a beautiful, like a blue eggshelly colour, and I just use it quite a lot. So much so that I'm using the space in the layout and I'm covering it and adding to it with that paint through a stencil, just to add that sparkle, add that magical element to the layout. And I'm not doing it overly, I'm just doing it in a few spots just to build. So I've popped up all of the embellishments I want with foam tape. So I'm adding the owl there and the bee. I've got the frog, and I'm putting in the toadstools behind the frog and over the frog, so that you can see that it's a layered embellishments set. I'm putting in these flowers, and I've put those to the side for the moment because I'm still playing with the layout and the arrangement. I would like the bees because that's in the park, and they add to that feel of the layout. I'm putting another frog down in the corner. I chose the frogs instead of the fox. I think that with the birds, the frogs were a better touch. So I have the big one over onto the right and a smaller frog here on the left, but I've got the bigger toadstool, so you can see that the contrast is there. I'm putting in my title here. It's all dry now, and you can see that it fits in with the colour scheme of the mood board. And I'm adding a bee just above there just to tie it all together. I use foam tape, as I said, to pop it, to give it dimension and shadows on the page. I like that on a layout. I'm building a flower cluster here, and that too will have layers that are popped and layers that are flat. So they tuck in, so they look like the natural arrangements of flowers in a garden. And I'm making sure that there's odds in my clusters. And you can see now that I'm happy with that. I'll build this cluster here once again, be popped over the top there, and then I am arranging it. And this too is an odd, and it's only 3 in this cluster. So you can see that how, like nature, I try to keep the clusters in the odds. So I'm adding some foliage just to bulk it up, and I'm using the steel blue cardstock that I've mounted the photos and done the frame with, and that's tying all of the elements together and making the page balanced. And that's really important when you look at your work. If you are into aesthetics, just arranging it so that everything links together is really important, I feel. and I am gluing all of those in, making sure they're all tucked in. You can see they're rearranged. I know it might be a bit confusing for you when you watch what I do. I am right-handed, yet when you see me cutting, I cut with my left hand, and I also arrange with my left hand a lot of the times as well. So I'm a bit ambidextrous in that respect. As I'm getting older, I'm tending to use my left a lot more, which is really strange because I am predominantly right-handed. But when it comes to crafting and things like that, my left hand does, and I think that's because it's that side of the brain that is engaging. I have gone and cut out some daisies just to give it a pop. I like to overlay elements from the paper if it's a busy background so that it breaks it up and brings it together. And the daisies that I've cut allow me to set up a triangle for the eye to roam from one part of the page to the other, and it's an unconscious triangle. And that's really important when you're looking at pages as well, because your eye just naturally follows it and it draws you to the photos. So yes, all my photos are there, but if you follow the clusters, you will see that your eye is dragged across the page. And that's effect that I've taken a long time to learn how to do. It doesn't easily come. For some people it does. For me it didn't. I've taken many years to learn to do that. And I've just noticed I need a third cluster of the gold. So I'm putting in another cluster of these flowers, which were from the fussy cut elements. And that now also creates the secondary triangle into the layout. So the eye has that visual and it roams from top to bottom, bottom to top. And it does that subconsciously. So the elements of the page help your eye to focus on the main details, which of course are the photos and the story behind the photos. So just to finish it off now, I'm just going to add some faux stitching with a goldy bronze coloured pen because I do not want it to overtake the layout, but I like the stitching edge because that finishes it off and draws it like a closure to the layout. That's just the cheats way of adding some stitching. Using stickles, I'm highlighting the bees' wings, making them iridescent when they dry, and the centres of those gold flowers as well. Then I've also added in some gold Nouveau dots, and I'm contemplating where I want journaling on this, and I'm not sure if I actually want to journal around the circle or I want to put it down the bottom. And eventually I did fall back to my normal and I go to the right hand side, see, predominantly right, and I just add in, it's Cody and we're at Parramatta Park, and it was in 2015, so it was a while back. I've had these photos sitting there ready to be done and I'm just waiting for the perfect paper, and it's finally arrived. And here we go. Once again, I contemplate, do I want to add anything else to it to tell the story, and I decide I don't want to detract from the layout by putting in some journaling, so I'm going to leave it clear on the front, but I will journal on the back. And that's what I often do, is I tell the story on the back of my layouts because I don't want to detract from them. And that's my double spread. I don't normally do doubles, it's not something that I regularly do, but for these I had enough photos that I really wanted to capture it instead of just the moment, just the story. I've used a mixture of elements, I've used a mixture of photo placement and presentation. You can see the stickles there on that bee's wings. That vine in that wreath is just amazing. I love it. Love that wreath. And look, it just came together and the colours were brilliant, and I hope you like something. I hope something inspired you. I hope you learned something. If you did, give me a like. It costs you nothing, but lets YouTube know that you like my content and that they'll keep pushing it, and I really hope that you'll support that process for me. Here's my double. I am pleased with it. I hope you like it. I'm Kathy from Kathy Loves to Scrap. Find me on Instagram. I have all my layouts up there. I do lots and lots of layouts besides the ones I do in my videos, so check them all out. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe if you haven't. It costs you nothing, and I will see you next time in my next video.